The Awakening of Legacy. The CSS Intrepid hung in geosynchronous orbit above Helios Prime, its massive titanium hull gleaming in the light of the binary star system. Once the pride of Earth's unified space command, the 300-year-old battlecruiser now served as a floating museum, a monument to humanity's first interstellar expansion era. Captain Maya Santos stood at the main viewport of the observation deck, watching as the day's final tour group filed toward the exit shuttles. At 52, her posture remained military straight, despite having left active service 8 years ago. Her dark hair, streaked with silver, was pulled back in a practical bun, and her museum director's uniform, though civilian, was pressed to perfection. "Another successful day, Captain," said Dr. Eli Chen, approaching from behind. As the ship's historian and Maya's second-in-command, Eli had transformed the Intrepid's cavernous halls into immersive exhibits that drew visitors from across the 17 colony worlds. "Attendance is up 20% this quarter," Maya noted, her eyes fixed on the blue-green surface of Helios Prime below. "The interactive battle of Proxima Centauri simulation is proving quite popular. People love stories of triumph against impossible odds," Eli replied, adjusting his glasses. "There's something compelling about how those ancient fusion drives and primitive rail guns managed to defeat the Centauri separatists despite being outgunned and outmaneuvered." Maya nodded, though her attention had drifted to the ship itself. The Intrepid had been decommissioned after the Unification Wars, its weapon systems dismantled and its military hardware converted to educational displays. Yet sometimes when she walked the corridors at night, Maya could almost feel the old warship humming with phantom energy, as if remembering what it once was. "Last shuttle's departing, Captain," announced Layla Ortiz, the operations coordinator, over the comms. "All visitors accounted for. Staff dinner at 1900 in the mess hall." "I'll be there," Maya replied. After Eli departed, Maya made her way down to engineering, where Darius Webb, the chief engineer, knelt beside an exposed panel, his hands buried in a tangle of wires. "Working late again?" she asked. Darius startled slightly, then chuckled when he saw her. "Just running diagnostics on the original propulsion systems. Most of them still work, you know. The weapons were decommissioned, but the engines, life support, navigation, they built these ships to last." Maya smiled. Darius had served on cruisers similar to the Intrepid in his youth and treated the old systems with reverence that bordered on obsession. He was the reason why the artificial gravity never fluctuated, why the temperature controls remained perfect, why the ancient hull integrity sensors still reported status every morning. "The modern fleet could learn something from these old designs," Darius continued. "Today's ships rely too heavily on quantum shielding and AI targeting. One good electromagnetic pulse and half their systems fail. These old girls," he patted the bulkhead affectionately, "pure mechanical genius. Redundant systems for the redundant systems. Let's hope they never need to put that to the test," Maya said. Later that night, after dinner with her 20-person crew, Maya sat in her quarters reviewing maintenance schedules when a priority alert chimed. The face of Admiral Hassan Amir of the Helios Prime Defense Force appeared on her screen, his expression grave. "Captain Santos, this is not a drill. We've detected multiple unidentified vessels entering the system. They're not responding to hails." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "Pirates?" "Negative. These are unlike anything we've encountered." The Admiral's image briefly gave way to tactical displays showing sleek, obsidian shapes moving with impossible precision. "They've already disabled our convoys at the system edge. We're classifying this as a first contact scenario, potentially hostile. What can we do to help?" Maya asked, military instincts already assessing options for a museum ship with no weapons. "For now, maintain your position. We may need to use the Intrepid as a temporary evacuation center if things go south. I'll update you as the situation develops." When the transmission ended, Maya initiated the ship-wide communication system. "All staff, this is Captain Santos. Report to the command deck immediately. Within minutes, her 20 crew members had gathered, engineers, historians, maintenance workers, and tour guides. None of them current military personnel, but many with service backgrounds. Maya explained the situation clearly with the limited information available. The Intrepid may be called upon to serve again, not as a warship, but as a sanctuary, she concluded. I need everyone ready. For 3 days, they watched as reports trickled in. The unidentified vessels, now identified as belonging to something calling itself the Krell Dominion, had bypassed the outer defense platforms and methodically begun attacking outlying settlements. The Colonial Defense Fleet responded, but the news grew worse with each passing hour. On the 4th day, they witnessed the war firsthand. A damaged human transport limped into Helios Prime's orbit, its hull breached in multiple sections. Maya established emergency communications. They appeared from nowhere. The transport's captain reported, his face ashen. Our shields meant nothing to their weapons. It's like they can predict our movements before we make them. More ships arrived as the day progressed, mostly civilian vessels packed with refugees. Helios Prime's orbital platforms quickly became overwhelmed. Admiral Amir contacted Maya again. We're sending evacuation ships your way. The Intrepid has a stable orbit, and your life support systems can handle additional people. Prepare to receive civilians. Within hours, the quiet museum ship transformed into a chaotic refugee center. Hundreds of frightened colonists filed aboard, many carrying nothing but the clothes they wore. Maya's crew worked tirelessly, converting exhibition spaces into temporary living quarters. Darius approached her during a rare quiet moment. Captain, I've been checking the old propulsion systems. If we needed to move the Intrepid, we could. Maya looked at him sharply. The ship is supposed to be permanently anchored in orbit. That was a management decision, not a technical limitation. The main engines are inactive but preserved. They could be brought online. How quickly? A few hours, maybe less. Maya considered this information carefully. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. But the next morning, it did. She was awakened by alarms blaring throughout the ship. Rushing to the command deck, she found Layla looking pale. Krell ships have entered Helios Prime orbit, Layla reported. The Colonial Defense Fleet is engaging, but they're outnumbered. Through the viewports, Maya could see flashes of light in the distance, the unmistakable sign of space combat. Helios Prime's modest defense force was fighting, but reports suggested they were already taking heavy losses. Admiral Amir's face appeared on the main screen, now showing signs of exhaustion and stress. Captain Santos, we're initiating full planetary evacuation. The Intrepid is to join the civilian convoy that will attempt to reach the jump point. Admiral, we're a museum ship. We have no weapons, minimal shields. You have thick hull plating from an era when ships couldn't rely on energy shields, Amir interrupted. And right now, that might be more valuable than you think. The Krell weapons are cutting through our modern shielding like it isn't there. He took a deep breath. Maya, I know what I'm asking, but those people on your ship need a chance to escape. After the transmission ended, Maya turned to her crew. Their faces showed fear, but also determination. Darius, she said quietly, start the engines. Deep within the Intrepid, machinery that had been silent for decades began to hum and vibrate. Maya gripped the railing on the command deck as the old warship shuddered around her. Engine output at 60% and climbing, reported Darius from engineering. The old girl remembers how to fly. Through the main viewport, Maya watched as Helios Prime grew smaller. All around them, civilian ships of various sizes formed a ragged convoy. Cargo vessels packed with refugees, private yachts, even modified mining ships. Every vessel capable of spaceflight had been pressed into service. Incoming transmission from Fleet Command, called Layla from Communications. The stern face of Admiral Victoria Katsura appeared on the main screen. Unlike Amir, whom Maya had known personally, Katsura was a stranger, a high-ranking officer from Earth Command who had arrived with reinforcements only hours ago. "Captain Santos," she said without preamble, "I've reviewed your ship's specifications. The Intrepid may be old, but its hull integrity exceeds many of our modern vessels. Your new orders are to position your ship at the rear of the civilian convoy and act as a shield against pursuing forces." Maya frowned. "Admiral, we have over 800 civilians aboard. We're a museum ship with no active weapon systems." Katsura's expression didn't change. "I'm activating emergency protocols to recommission all museum ships across human space. We're facing an enemy with technology we cannot match. Our modern ships are failing." She paused, her voice growing quieter. "Sometimes to move forward, we must look back. Position your ship as ordered, Captain." Katsura out. The screen went dark before Maya could respond. "She can't be serious," Eli said from beside her. "We can barely maneuver, let alone fight." Maya stared at the blank screen for a moment longer. "We don't need to fight, just position ourselves between the civilians and any pursuit." She turned to Layla at the navigation station. "Adjust our course. Take us to the rear of the convoy." As the Intrepid slowly changed position, Maya felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. They were no longer just preserving history. They were living it. The old guard rises. As the Intrepid took position at the rear of the civilian convoy, Maya made her way down to engineering. The section buzzed with activity as Darius and his team moved purposefully among machinery that hadn't been fully operational in decades. "How are we doing?" Maya asked. Darius wiped sweat from his forehead. "Better than expected. Propulsion systems are stable. Life support is handling the extra load." But he hesitated. "But what?" Maya prompted. A new voice answered from behind a bank of equipment. "But we could be doing a lot more." Sophia Novak, Darius's deputy engineer, stepped into view. At 38, she had the perpetually stained hands of someone who lived among machines. Unlike Darius, who had served on military vessels, Sophia's background was in archaeological engineering, preserving and understanding ancient technology. "What do you mean?" Maya asked. Sophia and Darius exchanged glances. After a moment, Darius nodded slightly. "Captain," Sophia said, lowering her voice, "I need to show you something." She led Maya through a narrow maintenance corridor to a section marked as storage on the museum maps. Inside, however, was no ordinary storage room. The space was filled with equipment, old components and systems that Maya recognized from her military studies. "What is this?" she demanded. Sophia took a deep breath. When they decommissioned the Intrepid, they were supposed to remove or disable all military systems. But some of us, we thought it was wrong to gut such a magnificent vessel. She gestured around the room. So we preserved what we could, kept it maintained, off the books. Maya's mind raced. "Are you saying the Intrepid isn't completely defenseless?" Sophia nodded. "We have functioning point defense systems. Some of the smaller rail guns could be brought online within hours. The main reactor can operate at full military capacity, not just the reduced output needed for a museum." Maya stared at her in shock. "That's against every regulation in the Federation. You could have been imprisoned for this." "I know," Sophia replied solemnly. "But we never intended to use any of it. It was about preservation, about respect for what this ship once was." Before Maya could respond, her communication device buzzed. "Captain to the command deck." Immediately came Layla's urgent voice. When Maya arrived back on the command deck, the atmosphere had changed. The crew's earlier nervous energy had transformed into something closer to fear. "Krell vessels approaching from behind," Layla reported. 3 ships moving fast. They'll intercept the rear of our convoy in 15 minutes. Through the rear viewports, Maya could see them. Sleek, dark ships with an alien design that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. They moved with a precision the human ships couldn't match. "The defense fleet?" she asked. "Engaged elsewhere. We're on our own." Maya made her decision. "Sophia," she called over the ship's communication system. Bring those systems online. All of them. Over the next 10 minutes, the Intrepid transformed. Systems that had been dormant for decades awakened. Weapon ports that had been welded shut for museum display were forced open. The ship's power signature changed as the reactor output increased. The civilian ships are accelerating, but the smaller vessels can't outrun the Krell, reported Layla from navigation. Put us between them and the pursuit, Maya ordered. All non-essential personnel to emergency stations. As the Intrepid moved into position, Maya addressed her crew over the shipwide system. This is Captain Santos. We are about to engage hostile forces. I know none of you signed up for this. You're historians, engineers, and educators, not soldiers. But right now, we're all that stands between those civilian ships and the enemy. The Intrepid knows what to do, even if we don't. Trust her. Trust each other. The first Krell attack came moments later. Strange pulses of energy that would have shredded a modern vessel's quantum shields. But the Intrepid had no quantum shields. Its defense was simple, solid titanium alloy, 3 meters thick in places. Minimal damage to outer hull, reported Darius, sounding surprised. Their weapons are designed to bypass modern defenses, not punch through armor. Maya nodded grimly. Sophia, are those rail guns online? Yes, Captain. But targeting systems are primitive by today's standards. That might be an advantage, Maya realized. They're predicting movements based on modern fleet tactics and AI targeting algorithms. We don't have those. She turned to Eli, who stood nervously at an auxiliary station. Dr. Chen, you're our historian. How would the Intrepid have fought during the Unification Wars? Eli blinked, startled. Captain, you created all those battle simulations for the museum. How would Captain Reynolds have fought this ship 300 years ago? Understanding dawned on Eli's face, aggressively. The early battle cruisers weren't nimble, but they used their mass as a weapon, making themselves too dangerous to approach directly. They'd close distance rapidly, ensuring that even glancing shots had impact. Maya turned to navigation. You heard the historian. Set an intercept course, full speed toward the lead Krell vessel. The Intrepid surged forward, its ancient engines roaring to life with power that belied their age. The sudden acceleration caught the Krell ships by surprise. They had been moving to outflank what they assumed was a helpless transport. Rail guns charged, called Sophia from engineering. Manual targeting only. Fire at will, Maya ordered. The Intrepid's first salvo was unimpressive by modern standards. Solid metal projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed by electromagnetic rails. But unlike energy weapons, they couldn't be deflected or absorbed by the Krell's defenses. The lead ship took 3 direct hits, its sleek hull crumpling under the kinetic impact. They're regrouping, Layla reported. Changing tactics. The remaining Krell ships split formation, attempting to target the Intrepid from multiple angles. Their weapons fire intensified, scoring hits across the old battlecruiser's hull. Deck 17 through 20 reporting hull breaches, Darius called. Automated seals holding. Backup systems responding. Maya gripped the command chair. Return fire. All functioning weapons. The Intrepid responded with a barrage of rail gun fire. Most missed. The targeting systems were indeed primitive, but enough connected to keep the Krell ships at a respectful distance. Captain, called Layla suddenly. I'm picking up new signatures, human signatures. On the tactical display, Maya watched as 4 new contacts appeared, moving to intercept the Krell ships from behind. The comms crackled to life. CS Intrepid, this is Captain Olivera of the CSS Dauntless, came a stern female voice. Looks like you could use some assistance. Maya's eyes widened. The Dauntless was another museum ship, stationed in orbit around Ta City's primary colony. Captain Olivera. How did you? Admiral Katsura's orders. All museum ships have been recommissioned. We've been monitoring your situation. We're moving to support. The tactical situation shifted dramatically as the CSS Dauntless, and 3 other reactivated museum ships engaged the Krell vessels. Like the Intrepid, these ships were relics from a bygone era, outdated and outgunned by modern standards, but strangely effective against the Krell's advanced technology. "They're retreating," Layla announced incredulously as the Krell ships began to withdraw. Maya could hardly believe it. The civilian convoy, clear of immediate danger. "They'll reach the jump point in 20 minutes. A cheer erupted across the command deck, a release of tension and fear that had been building since the crisis began. Maya allowed herself a small smile before addressing the crew. "This isn't over," she cautioned, "but we've bought precious time." Damage reports from all sections. Over the next hour, as the civilian ships escaped through the jump point, Maya learned that similar scenarios were playing out across human space. The recommissioned museum fleet, ships that had been preserved as historical curiosities, were proving unexpectedly effective against the Krell. Admiral Katsura's face appeared on the main screen once more, but her stern expression had softened slightly. "Captain Santos, I've received your after-action report. The Intrepid performed admirably." "Thank you, Admiral. But I should inform you that my crew violated numerous regulations by preserving military systems that should have been decommissioned." Katsura's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. "Consider those violations retroactively authorized, Captain. The Krell expected to face our advanced quantum shields and AI targeting systems. Instead, they encountered technology they hadn't prepared for: solid hull plating, analog targeting, and good old-fashioned kinetic weapons. Sometimes to move forward, we must look back," Maya quoted. "Indeed." Katsura's expression grew serious. "The Intrepid and the other museum ships are being formally recommissioned. We're assembling a task force of these older vessels, with you as squadron commander. Your mission will be to buy time for our scientists to develop effective countermeasures against Krell technology." Maya felt a mix of pride and apprehension. "My crew are museum staff, not military personnel. They fought like veterans today. Besides, they know these ships better than anyone. We're sending military personnel to supplement your crew, but you'll retain command." Katsura paused. "The Krell thought they had studied us thoroughly, Captain. They prepared for our most advanced technology, our most sophisticated strategies. They didn't account for our history, for the different ways humans have solved problems across centuries. That's our advantage." After the transmission ended, Maya made her way to the observation deck. Through the viewport, she could see the other museum ships taking up formation around the Intrepid. The Dauntless, the Valor, the Defiant, and the Constitution. Ships that had once been relegated to educational displays were now the front line of humanity's defense. Darius joined her, his uniform smudged with grease and coolant. "The old girl performed beautifully," he said, patting the bulkhead with affection. "Yes, she did," Maya agreed, "though I suspect your maintenance over the years had something to do with that." Darius shrugged. "I always knew these ships might be needed again someday. Not for the wars they were built for, but for something unexpected. History isn't just about preserving the past, Captain. It's about carrying forward the lessons and tools our ancestors created, adapting them for new challenges." Maya nodded slowly, watching as her crew, historians and engineers turned reluctant warriors, moved with new purpose throughout the ship. The Intrepid hummed around them, no longer a museum piece but a warship once more. Incoming transmission from the fleet, Layla's voice announced over the comms. Multiple Krell signatures detected approaching the Arcturus colony. Admiral Katsura requests immediate assistance. Maya straightened her uniform and nodded to Darius. "Prepare for jump. It seems history isn't quite finished with us yet." As the Intrepid and its squadron prepared for their next engagement, Maya couldn't help but feel that they were writing a new chapter in humanity's story, one that honored the past while fighting for the future.